Shad, if you would please introduce yourself and tell us your involvement in the livestock industry.
Yeah, my name is Shad Sullivan. I'm an American cattle rancher. I'm mainly a stocker operator in a segmented industry. I do own a few cows. We have an operation in North Texas and Southeast Colorado, and I I guess I'm a policy driven individual. America first, all the way. It's our 250th birthday coming up this weekend, and so I want to promote that on all levels that I can.
Yeah, okay. And so we've kind of seen on the news lately, Shad, you have been more than once have been back in DC to meet with some different officials.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so tell us about your most recent trip to Washington, D.C.
Well, my work in private property rights, as an individual and as a representative of RCAF USA, has allowed me to get my message to policymakers. And so, with that message, which is really freedom and liberty through private property rights and the protection thereof, has allowed this site to be set on something new, and that is the importance of independent production on the land in the United States. And so, as the policymakers have watched my message be concise and clear and consistent all the time, it has opened a few doors. And so, of course, I have been invited to testify in front of Congress this year on private property rights. I have sat on the lawfare rollout roundtable with Secretary Rollins. I stood in front of the DOJ and talked about the overreach of these corporations. And most recently, I was invited to participate in the America 250 celebration in coordination with the America 250 State Fair on the Mall, and was invited to dinner at the White House with President Trump. And so that was really exciting, something that I thought would never happen. And it was really just an experience of a lifetime. I think there are people that feel like that maybe I have power that I don't have. But the truth is I'm just an American rancher representing the people, and was invited to this dinner at the White House, was able to meet President Trump and represent the people all at the same time. So it was an experience that I'll never forget. But it was just a small snippet in a moment of time in this journey that we are on to protect independent production and property rights in America.
Right. So why is property rights the issue that you are focused on most?
Yeah. Well, so my family went through a property taking back in 1999, which planted the seed of a corruption in bureaucracy. And I've only seen it gain momentum since then. So, we're at 27 years that I've been working on these issues, or advocating in favor of private property and production on private property. And so the fact that has been recognized is a big deal. But the bigger deal is to recognize that there is an interwoven connection between private property and freedom and liberty. And every issue that we work on in the beef industry, in the cattle industry, or whatever industry you may be involved in, all has a foundation of private property. America was built on private property. We often hear life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but originally that was life, liberty, and property, right? And whatever you have that allows you to make a living and put food on your table, pay the bills, is private property. It doesn't have to be thousands of acres. It can be your gun. It can be your coat. It can be whatever helps you, your bicycle. That is private property. And that is the fight that we are fighting in this concentrated economy that we've left capitalism out and became concentrated in this economy on every scale, in every industry. And that is an absence of the value of private property. Concentration is an absence of the value and the respect for private property, which our founding fathers said was the most important, because life, liberty does not exist without private property. And so as we concentrate the economy more and more, we forget the value and the importance of independent production brought to us by private property. And on top of that, liberty and freedom. Without it, we are not free people. We must have access to our own private property. I'm not saying everybody can have it, because it's merit based, right? I mean, you work hard, you have a dream, you go buy a farm, you build something from scratch. That's the American dream. So we have to protect that, Carrie, at every level. It's a constitutionally, divinely driven ideal that our founding fathers saw from the very beginning. They understood it. And really, we're in scary times because we are forgetting the importance of that, because comfortability has allowed us to, consume cheaply and at volume, right? And that's because of concentration.
Yep.
And so it's a dangerous time. And so with the Trump administration being in place now, who represent really return to the people, and that's, I mean, I guess that can be argued by people, but I believe that that's what this administration represents, is the return to the people.
Mm-hmm.
We have this double down by those who don't believe in holding the value of private property constitutionally driven. And so we're working as hard as ever, even in this administration, to protect those rights.
So are you finding, like, as you get more involved here and meet more people, it seems like for quite some time, just kind of like you were saying, there's been sort of an attack on agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
We want to blame agriculture for climate change. We want to blame agriculture for every problem that we think is going on. And kind of like you alluded to, I've heard it said that when people don't have to work hard for the things they need, their food, shelter, clothing, then they start doing things that don't make sense.
Sure.
They start attacking the things that are providing for them.
Yes.
But I'm curious, are you seeing that there are more people that have what I consider to be common sense that do support property rights, that do support ag producers, that do support independent production? Are there more of those out there than we thought, or are there less?
Well, there are still people who value the Constitution and, capitalism through property rights. And there are a ton of independent producers. But as with all conservative movement, those people's voices are not heard often. And that's what makes this with me unique, is I am an independent producer. And I have somehow had my voice heard, and it's an honor. It's truly an honor, but it is God ordained. Like, I did nothing. I have done nothing to secure all this. Only God could orchestrate what has happened in my representation of independent producers. The answer to your question is yes, there are a lot of independent producers who still value this. The problem is they're all at home working, and they're all at home trying to make a living. And so you have the opposite end of that, who somehow understand that politics and policy requires involvement. It requires action. And so the opposite end of the spectrum, they know how to get out there and get money donated. They know how to make a living without actually making a living, right? I mean, without actually working with their hands. They have figured out how to infiltrate the system, and that is a problem.
Yeah.
And
that's not where our minds go. I mean, that's the total opposite of how we were raised. And
correct, right? I mean, we need to be at home taking care of your job. My operation is suffering a little because I'm gone so much now on policy work, and that's not good. But my vision of this is, obviously, you know me well enough to know that my vision is to leave something behind for the generations to come, to make sure they understand that liberty is the most important value that an American can have, right? And so there's got to be sacrifice. And if not me, then who, right? How are we going to do this? And so it's going to take us all. But, to get back to that question, there are those independent producers, and they are waking up. And they're waking up, number one, because their pocketbooks have been hurt. Number two, their voice has been silenced. And number three, they see their liberty going away. And I believe that the conservative movement in America, from independent producers and independent thinkers, freedom makers, so to speak, I think they believe that the Trump administration represents their values to the highest it can, and that their only chance to save a nation is during this administration. I hear that all the time. This is our last chance. And so I think that's why they've become very active. But with that, as they've become active, the enemy is doubling down. The America haters double down. And we have to figure out a way to reach everybody. And I feel like, I have tried to do that my best. I'm obviously a very conservative man, but I'm not so far right that I'm going to the wrong place, right? I think we have to figure out how to get the common sense people back to the middle and say, okay, we can work together for the common good and values that represent America. But as it stands, we have the left-leaning Democrats who have gone so far left that they, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the right who have gone so far right, and they don't realize that they're taking us to the same place by different means. And it's all driven away from freedom and liberty, controlled production, controlled consumption, no property rights, and more collectivism. Both the Republicans and the Democrats. That's the destination, whether they know it or not. The Democrats know it because they're collectivists. The hard left Democrats, they're collectivists. The Republicans think they're doing you a favor, but at the end, you're still a serf to that kingdom. And so we have to bring these people back to the middle. And I think that's where my place in this is. I mean, I can communicate with a lot of people and enjoy doing so. I'm not an expert on anything, but the Lord has given me a voice to speak on all things that are good. And, America is good. Our values are good. Our Constitution is good. It's a system of order that works. But there's just, the enemy has made it clear that and when I say the enemy, I mean both here on earth and spiritual, they want to fight against it. So my goal is to help, bring people back to where they should be. Does that make sense?
I think, yeah. I mean, I think that was so interesting because I feel like for years, from my work working at the Stock Growers, I learned pretty early on, and I came in with no political knowledge at all. But I figured out pretty early on that there's not a party that's going to save us. It's not
correct.
It's not about tying in with a party. This is about, and I feel like you and others have done this and are finally seeing some fruits of your labor of standing up for what's right.
Yeah.
And what you believe in, and for just basic principles of egg production.
I couldn't agree more.
And yeah. And
our mutual friend, Eric Groper, he's always like, this isn't Republican or Democrat. This isn't left or right. This is right versus wrong.
Mhm.
And anybody with any kind of heart and soul knows the difference between right and wrong, right? I mean, that's just a natural occurrence. And so the expedition, so to speak, back to our roots and back to a common sense policy negotiations and implementation is exciting, but it is not easy.
No,
And
hard road. Mhm.
but my whole attitude is, but for God, right? God can do anything, and our fight is a righteous fight, Carrie.
Absolutely. Yeah. So tell me, this just looked so cool to me. I watched a video of the president speaking at the Rose Garden and a table right up near the front and a hat and a profile I recognized. And so it looked to me like you sat with Secretary Rollins during the meal. Is that right?
Correct, I did.
So
Yeah.
how
So
did that
it's
so
an exciting deal. You go into the white, we got this invitation. I just got this invitation out of the blue, and I was excited because I was headed out there for the America 250 event anyway. I had been asked to do a panel on the mall and then perform a poem in honor of America on the mall, which is, just absolutely the America 250 committee asked me to do that. And it was what an honor, right? So then later I got this invitation to the White House. And so you go to the White House and you go through security. That's not easy. I mean, there's 3 levels of security, and you get in there, and we walked into what is really known as the front door. When we had the ag gathering with President Trump and he came out on the veranda to speak, that's actually what I understand, the back of the White House. So we went through the opposite side, the front door, into this grand foyer. And of course, the military represented there is just spot on. Beautiful people, dressed immaculately. It is perfection, as close as it can be here on Earth. And they send us down the hallway, down some stairs, into the basement corridor where there's a band, bluegrass band playing. I think it was the Navy Bluegrass Band, maybe. And you walk down the corridor and you check in and you say, your name's Shad Sullivan. They give you a card. My card had table 17 on it. It's a lottery, because I really thought I'd be sitting with my friends like the Mods or Keely Cavello or somebody that we knew, and it wasn't that way. So I went and I found my seat, and it happened to be table 17. I was by myself. And then 2 other people sat down. One of them was a friend of mine from New Mexico who I hadn't seen in a couple of years, a dairy producer. And then there was another policymaker at our table. And so that left one chair empty. And then Brooke Rollins shows up and sits down at our table, which is pretty cool. And the table is right in front of the podium. Mm-hmm. Well, everybody made small talk. It was fun. Everybody got to just, it was just good camaraderie. Great fellowship. And so President Trump comes out and he speaks very well, very eloquently. At the same time, candidly, he has a special gift there. And we talked about everything from ag production to the Strait of Hormuz, the war with Iran, trade policy. It was really cool. Very knowledgeable man. And so then right as he steps off of the porch, there where his podium was, the Secret Service is protecting him extremely closely. No more pictures, no gathering around him. But Secretary Rollins was at my table, and she said, "Go shake his hand." And I was like, "Huh? What?" And and it was just 2 steps over, right? 1, 2. And she said, "Go shake his hand." And so I went over there and I reached out and he grabbed my hand and we shook, and he held it for probably 30 or 40 seconds. And I thanked him. I just said, "I just want to thank you for bringing freedom and liberty back to the nation. It's a big deal." And he was very gracious, very nice. And he said, I said, "Do you want to make history?" And he said, "Yeah, what you got?" And I said, "Well, It's America 250. I want to interview you and Secretary Rollins at USDA for America 250 celebration. This has not happened since 1982, which was the only time in history the Secretary of Agriculture and the president sat down together in an interview. And this is the year that we need to do this. And he looks at me and he says, "Who are you with?" And I said, "I'm an independent American cattle rancher with a podcast." And I said, "I've already interviewed Secretary Rollins twice. I've interviewed Deputy Secretary Vaden at USDA. It's been fantastic." And he looks at me and he says, "Let's do it." And I said, "Okay." And so that was the end of that. I went back and sat down, and Secretary Rollins and I talked about it, and she couldn't believe I asked. Every single person I know can't believe that I asked him for an interview. I'm like, well, I wasn't sure of what I was supposed to talk about with him.
Yep.
I'm very gracious. Everybody knows, I mean, it's no secret that I'm a Trump fan, and I was raised in the way that Trump talks, right? I mean, what he says he means, whether he's right or not.
Right.
What he says he means, and everything is black and white, and that's how I was raised. So that's really what I gravitate to when talking to people and when leaning towards one way or another. I don't like. My dad was always like, do not do business with somebody with a forked tongue, right? And you have to. Your word is your only bond, and so I believe that he is that way, and that's why I gravitate to him. So I was super excited about that. And then, we had a spectacular meal, USA home-raised beef on the tables, USA produce for the salad. The salad was the best salad I ever had. And then my steak was just unbelievable. And then, of course, dessert, and everybody chit-chatted and took pictures and celebrated America. That's what it was about, was celebrating America on the America 250. And Trump didn't stick around long. He did stick around long enough to eat. He sat in the table right beside me. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was an experience I'll never forget. And I appreciated being asked. Yes, I'm taking a lot of heat on it, and I'm okay with that because I still believe that I represent the independent common rancher. And if I have a voice in Washington, D.C., I'm proud to do that. I'm the same guy I was 10 years ago. Some people like me, some people don't. But this notoriety, and there has been notoriety come with all of this, but there's also been punishment come with it. And I knew that when I put myself out there a long time ago, Carrie, that I had to take the good with the bad. That was something my dad always preached to me. My dad's been dead a long, long time, but he always said, "Shad, you have to take the good with the bad." And I had a talk about 6 years ago with my mom, and I said, I'm becoming more politically active, policy driven. I see what's happening to the land. I see what's happening to our producers. And I said, it could cost us everything. And she said, what are you going to leave behind? What are you going to leave for the kids coming behind us? Mm-hmm. If you don't fight, who will? And so that has been really on the back of my mind is, we're notorious for not going anywhere. We're notorious for just doing our job and keeping our nose to the grindstone as producers. And we should be, Carrie, but we have to have a voice. And listen, I've always been a good communicator, not a perfect communicator, but certainly a good communicator. I was raised by the most honorable man I've ever met. My dad, he was the most moral man, even to this day, I've ever met. And he never, ever walked into a church, but he was the most biblically moral man I ever met. And I believe that is my legacy, and that what him and my mom taught me as human beings that we, honesty, integrity, high character. He always said, son, lion won't get your dreams, right?
Mhm.
So it is a balancing act because many people think that I'm selling my soul to the devil, but I'm not.
Mhm.
Does it look like I'm on the line? Yeah, it probably does. But the truth is I have the same values and same integrity that I did, 20, 27, 28 years ago when those people came and took our land. And that's really what I'm fighting for. I love America. Oh my gosh, I love America. And it brings me to tears every time I think about it because, I don't know if you got to listen to my speech at RCAF USA, the imperfect, perfect vision,
Mhm.
where we honor those who shed blood in the name of freedom and really steward it. We're stewards in the middle for the heirs of liberty that come behind. And so I have this great weight on my shoulder to whether it's justified or not, it's there. I don't
Mhm.
know. But I have this weight on my shoulder to try to represent the people and the American values, our great American values to the best of my ability. And so that's what I'm doing, and I'm not, to get an invite to the White House. If Joe Biden would have invited me to the White House, I would have been there. It's just something you don't turn down. And so
You'd be
that's
crazy not to, in your position as, you know, choosing to speak for the American rancher and choosing to do what you can to advance policy that helps the American rancher. To me, you'd be crazy to not accept an invitation to speak to anyone that has the power to influence that.
one thing that Bill Bullard taught me a long time ago, was don't ever turn down an invite or an interview. Never turn it down.
Yeah.
Because if you're not there, you're not going to influence what is right.
Right.
And so that's
Well,
why.
and I was going to say how unfortunate that politics has become this, that people accuse you of selling your soul to the devil when what you've done is stand up for ranchers
For sure.
and defend what you believe in consistently, the same message, but how people view that as you being a politician, I suppose, and politicians have given themselves a bad name,
Yeah,
and right,
no
so
doubt. No doubt.
but that's
Yeah, I was accused yesterday of being a sellout. I am America first. I have made no bones about the screwworm and the border issue. I believe that, and I spoke to this on the USMCA panel at the America First Policy Institute last year, where America has to regain her sovereignty. We have given our sovereignty, especially our food sovereignty, away.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, with these trade deals, we must force Mexico, and I'm talking about the screwworm, to regain their sovereignty. And when I say that, I mean regain their sovereignty from outside influences such as the cartel or trafficking, human trafficking, or whatever that may be. But until both countries regained their sovereignty, took control of their country, trade was going to be difficult. And so I have been a proponent of keeping the border closed, at least until we have some control on the screwworm. And because of that, I was accused of being a sellout to America.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, there is nothing more opposite of what you're saying. I'm not a sellout to my country. I'm a protectionist.
Right.
And so the people come out of the woodwork. And listen, there's been 99 to 1, maybe 99 and a half to a half in support of me and the independent movement compared to the others. So the positivity is overwhelming. But it's funny that even just a small detractor will make you question yourself, right?
Right. Well, but there again, we've been conditioned, and again, justifiably so, to ask, what's the ulterior motive? Why is this person saying this? What are they actually doing?
Yes.
People, we hear these nice things coming out of politicians' mouths all the time. They want to help us. They want to do the right thing. They love America, but their actions say differently. And so, you can't really, I mean, in defense of these people that are questioning you, I can kind of understand that too, because that's what we've had to do with so
It
many
is.
people that have said one thing and done another. And hopefully, as long as you can continue to show that that's not you, people will come around and realize that.
Yeah. And, I have a lot of good friends like y'all, that keep you accountable. My family keeps me accountable. My wife is a CPA. She keeps me. This morning, we were talking about, economic policy in the bathroom. And she keeps me accountable because I tell her these things. And I'm like, what do you think? And she's like, she just tells me the honest truth. And that's what I want to do. And I think that's why I've gained a little bit of respect is because I see things, really, I do see things from a 40,000 foot view. I'm not like Brett Kinsey is super logical. He's super in-depth thinker. My gift is to see it from the 40,000 foot view and see what happens without actual fruit, right? I know what's going to happen. I know what the fruit's going to be of these actions.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a gift. I have a gift of discernment, and I have, obviously, my mama said, you got the gift of gab. And so that my ability to see the issues from high up, have discernment on those who are making policy, and then communicate the truth has really been probably what my catalyst into this fury
Yep.
or foray, furious foray of what we're doing here,
Just
Carrie. But listen, I'm proud. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to be to represent RCAF through private property rights. I'm proud to have people like you and all of these independent producers as friends and communicators. I mean, I'm talking to policymakers that people hate. They hate their guts, but there is something in my wheelhouse that allows me to bring them to my level, to our level.
mhm.
And I don't know if it's just because I'm so common, which I am, um, but I believe that it's God ordained. And I believe that, when I was on the Glenn Beck show, I came home and I was confused because, we've talked about this before where they canceled the day I was supposed to be there because he was going to interview the President Trump.
Mhm.
And then I was there in 2 days later. And then in 2 days later, they interviewed Tucker Carlson, who had just interviewed Vladimir Putin. And so that puts a place of confusion in me. Where do I belong in this system? Where do I belong in this move? So the only thing I could do was pray about it and say, Lord, if you want me to go forward with the message, you have to give me the wisdom to understand and the words to communicate it. I'll walk through the door, but you've got to give me those other things.
Mhm.
And so far, it's been a powerful move. It may end today. Who knows? It's not about me being famous. I mean, last night we were at church and everybody said, "You're famous. You're famous." I don't. That does not. Like, I feel like the same guy today as I did 5 years ago before I ever thought I would meet the president. I'm looking in my office and how trashed it is. Need to wash the dishes in the bunkhouse. I fed cattle this morning. I don't feel any different. I don't feel special. I don't feel a high up with it. I just feel like Shad Sullivan.
Yeah.
And you know what I want to do today? I want to read a book and I want to write a poem for America 250. That's who I am. Is it special that I got to meet President Trump? Yeah, it's for a moment in time. But what I have found is all of these people are just people.
Yeah.
They're just human beings. I mean, I was able to interview Stacy Shefflin at AFPI, and that's going to be coming out pretty quick. She's a billionaire. She saw me the other day and she said, Shad, it's so good to see you. She gave me a hug and said, will you record a poem for us? And I'm like, you bet. And I messed it up. Started over. We're just an imperfect people given opportunity to influence and steward what we have in America right now. And what a more special time to do that than America 250.
Absolutely. So I know your time is short. Do you have a minute? Okay, I was just going to ask if you would just share with us super briefly some of the other ag-focused activities that were going on there in DC while you were.
So, dinner with the president was Thursday night, and then Friday morning, there was an event called Breakfast with Brooke, and it was an incredible event at USDA. It was an invited deal, but there was probably 300 people there, and it was, all but two of President Trump's cabinet was there to speak, just on the celebration of America. There were 4-H, there were FFA groups, there were mostly 90%, probably 95% independent producers in the room. There were a few trade organizations that were representative, but that was really cool. And then when that was over, we all went out to the mall to celebrate the America 250 fair, right? And it was just a representative, the county fair level is representative of your community, and that is a tradition that has been passed on for 250 years in America. It's a local celebration. Well, the America 250 committee and President Trump wanted to represent the common people. So they got on one end of the mall, and the other end they have a stage set up, and then they have each state represented. Within, there's concerts, there's tradition, there's, like dancers and storytellers, and there's a rodeo and a Ferris wheel and a livestock show and everything that comes with the county fair. Mm-hmm. And it was super good. I mean, Saturday, it was so packed in there, you couldn't walk. They had to cancel some of the concerts at night because it was downpour rain. I think Vanilla Ice got canceled, but then he'd come back the next day and did one. There was AJ Richards, Hayden Ballard, Dr. Rich Brazil, Heather Maud, and myself sat on a panel just talking about Western values and America 250 to a crowd. And then I was able to do a patriotic poem that I wrote many, many, many years ago. That everybody loves. And it was an honor to get to do that. And then every evening they had a small rodeo, just an interpretive type deal where, they had a bronc rider and a Mexican trick roper, and they had a Roman rider, and they had a bulldogger and a ropers, and just something to show the American people where we have come from. Mm-hmm. Cool. And then, of course, there was the 4-H and FFA kids. There was ag mechanics projects. There was, goats, cattle, sheep, hogs were represented. We got to show the people how all of this takes place. And then, of course, they had merchandise and food. And really there was, a place for each state where you could go in and see how each state, what the famous thing they were in their states. And I will tell you that South Dakota and Montana have the two best, I don't know what you call them, deals, rooms represented. South Dakota's was awesome.
Was it cattle focused?
It was history and agriculture focused. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was fun, but awesome. Overall, it was worth going to. I see a lot of social media activity by mainstream media saying, "Oh, there was nobody there." That's just not true. I was there for 3 days, and there was a ton of people there, and it was freaking awesome.
I haven't seen that media coverage saying people weren't there, but the videos and pictures I've seen, it looks full.
Yeah.
I was going to ask how people, is it a ticketed event then? I assume people.
No, it is not ticketed. It's free to the public. You just walk in there, and of course you have to go through high security, but no bags are allowed. But no, it is free to the public. It's awesome. It's awesome.
I
So,
tracked down the bronc rider, and I'm going to be interviewing him tomorrow, I think, as long as he gets clearance to
and
talk.
who is that?
Well, he's from Virginia. Will Stites.
And you know, another thing that happened on the mall is they had a 24-hour um, church service there, and they had, you know, a church set up and constant services, mostly just music, but they had a baptismal pool and kids were getting baptized. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Listen, it was freedom. It was freedom founded, and it just reminded you of the original days, you know, the founding fathers and what their vision for this country was. And I was proud to be a part of it all. And, you know, now we're back to the grindstone. We got to go to work and do what's real. But I'll never forget. And I will always appreciate President Trump and Secretary Rollins for allowing me to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're so glad that you were.
Yeah.
And we are looking forward with great anticipation to your interview with the president and Secretary Rollins.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we'll definitely share that through Tri-State. So
we gotta get her going. I've said we're gonna do it. He said let's do it. Secretary Rollins was like, if he said let's do it, we're doing it. Now let's see if it happens.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time, Shad.
Yep.
Both here with me and just the time that you spend speaking for the ranching industry. It's crucial.
Well, it's an honor, and it's an honor to, you know, be involved with people like you and the RCAF team, and just, you know, what I call them, freedom makers. And I'm just, you know, it's not about me. It's not about RCAF. It's about America. It's about what we leave behind. And I think that we have an honorable and noble cause here. And so we carry on.